Welcome to the Culture Curators podcast. We're here to share insight, information, and resources to help you become a more effective salon business owner. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our latest podcast. And today, it's kind of a hot topic, I think. It's going to be around some wake-up calls for you as a business leader. And sometimes that's hard to hear, and sometimes we don't want to look up some wake-up calls, but sometimes it's really essential that we look at it if we want to be an effective, impactful leader. And so I want to start with talking about your team and talking about, do you work for your team or does your team work for you? And I don't know about you, but I've heard many people say, well, my team works for me as a business leader, as a business owner, they work for me. Yes, they do. However, I'm going to challenge you to flip that and ask yourself, how is it that you can work for your team? What is it that you do on a daily basis to work for your team? And I think in doing that, they absolutely will work for you. And of course, at the end of the day, your name is at the bottom of the paycheck. And so you write that check. So obviously they work for you. But I want you to start to consider thinking about that in a different light. What is it that you can do to work for your team to help engage them more in your culture, in their business, help them to retain their guests more, to reach their goals, and to live a more fulfilled life?
Yeah, and I think, when you have a team and depending on how long you've been in business, it takes some time to really figure out your rhythm of leading, and you're going to trip along the way. I think a big part of leadership is being accountable and being as transparent as possible. So, meaning when you make a mistake, you own it, you apologize. If that means that you need to publicly apologize, meaning at a team meeting in front of everyone because it's affected more than one or two people, then that's what you need to do. It's kind of like eating the humble pie as, kind of regularly, kind of putting it as a part of your diet in a way.
Yeah.
And growing yourself as a leader best you can. And I think one of the biggest challenges in leadership is it's not if you approach leadership as me first, you're going to constantly be struggling. When you start thinking we first and they first, and you change it, which is hard to do, man. It's
Really
hard to
hard.
do when you live in your life and you got a family and you got this and that. There's so much you have on your plate and there's so many directions you're pulled. It's really, really hard, but it's also the hard that you signed up for.
Yeah, it is. It's the hard that we all wanted as business
Or
owners,
I thought we
right?
did.
There we thought we did, right? We didn't know what we didn't know at the time, for sure. And you talked about humbleness and standing before your team and eating a piece of humble pie. And it just reminds me of a story that I always tell. I know you've heard it a million times, but there was a gentleman who decided he was going to take a big, like he was going to eat the whole pie in one shot. And he called a team meeting and he looked around his team and he said, I just want you to know, everyone, that I fired someone today. And of course, that caught everyone's attention, right? And everybody's looking around and they're looking to see who was missing and they couldn't figure it out. And he said, I just want you to know that I fired myself. And I fired myself because I wasn't the leader that each and every one of you deserved, that I wasn't living up to my greatest potential as a leader and an inspirational person to you. And so I fired myself. And he went on. And do you think that he had everybody on the edge of their seat? The answer is yes. He got such a buy-in at that moment from his team because he appeared real. He appeared authentic, and it was just a genuine conversation. And he went on to say, I've rehired someone else and I've rehired a new and improved version of me. And here's what my commitment is to each and every one of you moving forward, that's hugely impactful. So that's taking something where you have to eat some humble pie, and maybe we've done things in the past that we really have to be sorry for, and have to face it with the team. But that's taking it and acknowledging it, and then letting them know what it's going to look like moving forward, what they can expect from you as their leader, but also in doing so, what you as their leader can expect from them. And so when I think about that, I think about the saying of the leader of the pack determines the pace of the pack, something like that. The pace of the leader determines the pace of the pack. Maybe that's it, something like that. And I'm gonna say yes, and I'm gonna say, how do you do that with excellence? How do you do that, not just in leading them, like you get up and you show up every day, but how do you get there and how do you go above and beyond? Because that's what we want our team to do, right? We want them to go above and beyond. But if we're not showing up and we're not leading, guiding, and directing through excellence in what it is that we do and everything that we do, how can we expect our team to be better than we are?
Yeah, that's the reality. Your team is a reflection of you, and
Yeah.
they go as you go. That's the reality. And um, I think really learning how to listen, learning how to understanding that your temperature or your attitude or your vibe affects everyone. You
Mm-hmm.
just carry a really, really big responsibility as a salon owner, as a business owner in general. And when you walk in the room, your attitude is going to lift up the spirit of the room or bring it down or change it. And I think that you have to be aware of that. You have to understand that there's a really important part of listening in the role of a leader that is really critical so that your team feels heard. And then also, I think one of the big pitfalls of leadership is a lack of follow through. So if you don't follow through on the things that you've said you're going to do, like he could have had in your example, he could have had that conversation, but if next week he reverted back to his same old self, then it's kind of like, what was the point of all that?
That was a wasted golden moment,
Yeah.
actually.
So you have to learn how to follow through and, you know, cash the checks that your mouth writes, so to speak. And if you're not doing that, you got to take a real good look in the mirror and be like, all right, well, am I over promising, under delivering? Am I spreading myself too thin? Am I over committing to things? Am I trying to do too many things at once, which is what's leading to the lack of follow through? Am I not delegating? There's a few different areas that you can start to analyze to figure out what changes you need to make. But being very honest with yourself, I think, starts with that right away. That it's like, wait a minute, I'm not getting to where I need to be because I'm not committing to the time that it takes or to the actions that it takes or whatever the case may be. It's going to be different for each person.
Wow, you just made a huge statement about the time that it takes. Again, I don't think as business owners, when we sign on the dotted line for our big lease and we do the build out and we hire our team, I don't think that anyone is prepared for the amount of time that it takes to really be an impactful business owner slash leader. It will take more time than you can ever imagine, and it will take more strength and courage, and you'll have to face more fears than you ever imagined that you would have to. It just takes that much time, and to think that it's not going to is just setting yourself and your team up for failure.
Yeah, and I think, your life is going to change through the journey of your ownership, and you have to learn how to categorize and compartmentalize certain things that are happening in your life so that you can still show up the best version of yourself as a leader. And again, all the things that we're saying, we're acknowledging that they're very challenging and difficult, but they're also very critical and important and kind of non-negotiable if you want to be a great leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I think you really have to take a look at is, do you play favorites?
Mm.
Do you have your favorite employee? We almost always do. And let me tell you, if you do and you treat them even an inch different than everybody else, guess what? Everybody else sees it, and it is a reflection on you and your leadership ability. There can't be any favorites. It doesn't matter if he's been there for 15 years, 30 years, 50 years, or if she's a single parent with 15 children. Everybody needs to be treated in the same fashion. The rules have to be consistently followed and they have to be consistent because if they're not, again, it takes away from your leadership in what your team thinks about you.
Yeah. Amen. Amen to that.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting. We do a four question survey with clients that we work with, and it's anonymous. And so they have a safe space. The team has a safe space to say whatever it is that they want to share about the business, and it's controlled. It's four specific questions. And it's very, very interesting what we hear. And there's always a theme, I'll say. And we always really get what's truly going on, what it is that the business leader may not see or may see and choose to not see, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And there are some times where maybe half the team won't even fill it out. And so their voice isn't heard, but in their silence, I think their voice is really loud and really heard. That there are some tremendous setbacks, maybe with communication or consistency or any of the things that we're talking about today within that organization that really need to be addressed. And so, to have a team member say there's nothing that they want to address or there's no challenges or anything like that, sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it may be a warning sign.
Yeah, because it could show indifference, and
Exactly.
indifference is not a good, healthy part of a great culture,
Not at all.
and because then indifference is obviously, another version of being disengaged. And sometimes being disengaged and indifferent means one foot out the door, so it's just a domino effect. So, just keeping your pulse on the communication. Are you having regular team meetings? Are you doing one-on-ones like we talk about all the time? Are you connecting with your team? Are you being honest with yourself and with them? Are there elephants in the room that haven't been addressed that need to be? Is there drama happening that you put up with that you kind of throw your hands up and say you can't do anything about it? Are you allowing certain people to get away with certain behaviors that you say are against the business values? All of these things can undermine. And listen, we've been a part of some of this stuff where it's like,
For sure.
whether we made the mistake ourselves, whether we allowed someone within our own culture to undermining is a really poison. It's exactly that. It's poison that slowly poisons. Sometimes a slow poison, even though it starts slowly, there will be a point where it kills quickly.
Yeah.
And it could kill the really great thing that you've built within your culture. So just protect that and know that it starts with you. You can do it. It's just a matter of taking the time, being intentional, and again, holding yourself incredibly accountable. All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Look forward to the next one. Talk to you guys soon. That's it. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Culture Curators podcast. Please like, comment, follow, and subscribe.